just pulled up on the TV. All right, so today a little bit about Atomic Design and Pattern Lab, which is kind of this really, really cool new direction with design and front-end development that I'm really excited about, even though I'm a back-end coder, just because it's that awesome. So just a little credit disclaimer before we get started. These ideas mostly come from either Brad Frost, who wrote the book on atomic design, and then the Pattern Lab official website. So I'm using a lot of the ideas and some of the visual aids from those. So go check them out. They're really good resources.
Are you recording?
Yes, I am recording. All right, so let's start off with what atomic design is first. So it's kind of a different approach to the design and prototyping process than what was traditionally used in the industry. So traditionally, a lot of times you'd have a designer sit down and they would create full-page design mock-ups and things, where you do like a photorealistic representation of what like the home page is going to look like or what the news page is going to look like. And then from there, the client approves it, you hand it off to a designer and they figure out how to break that full page mock-up down into individual parts and make it work with HTML and CSS. So atomic design is component-based and it starts with the smallest elements first. So instead of starting with the full page, you start off with the absolute smallest part first. Like we'll start off defining color swatches, we'll start off defining input fields, different things like that. And we'll create designs for those small level things first and then work up to the pages later on. So this approach helps improve consistency. So on a lot of projects, as I'm sure a lot of the front-end designers can vouch for, you'll run into things where they used a font on this page design, but they used a different one on a different page design, and there's no real reason why they should be different. It was just kind of an oversight. Or they'll be using 15 pixel margins on one page and 30 on another. And again, there's no good reason. It was just kind of an oversight when they're doing the Photoshop designs. So by taking like this bottom-up approach first, it helps with consistency. We use this design for, a checkbox all over the site, and it's consistent throughout the site. Additionally, this helps improve the speed of prototyping, because if we show a full page design to a client and they don't like it, then we have to go back and redesign the whole thing. With this component design, we start off with components first, and then even once we get to the full page, if they don't like it, it's like, okay, we'll just swap out this button style for this button style. Because hopefully at that point we've got a component library built up, and then we can just swap out the parts that need changed. And then why is it called atomic design in the first place? So the reason for that is it borrows a lot of terminology from chemistry. So we talked about starting with the smallest element first. So the smallest elements in atomic design are going to be the atoms. So those are the absolute smallest. Those will be things like checkboxes, inputs, paragraph tags, things like that. And then we work up to slightly bigger things with molecules, which are 2 or 3 elements that are kind of grouped together. Then we move on to organisms, templates, and pages. So we'll discuss those in a little bit more detail. First, we'll start with atoms. So again, these are the smallest building blocks of your site design. So a few examples of those are up on the thing. This could be things like a heading, like an H1, H2, or H3 tag, a paragraph, just even a color. So those are kind of examples of atoms. The next we'd move to molecules, which are basically groups of atoms that work together functionally. So examples of those would be something like a search form where you've got like a label, a text field, and then a search button. So those 3 elements together would make up a molecule. Like a call to action banner, which you've probably seen where they've got a block with a background image, a header, and then bright shiny button that says click here for more information. That would also be a molecule. Pager, so when you're on like a view, you'll sometimes see the 1, 2, 3, 4 to go to the next page. So that would be another example of a molecule. Right, next level up, I do not want to connect to iCloud. Next level up are organisms. So again, we're just going up the next level. So these are going to be groups of molecules. So like your header that's got, you know, a search field plus the menu plus, you know, 3 or 4 other things like the logo. The footer, like a grid view that, you know, has like products in it. That's got like a product image, a link to the product, the price, things like that. Right, and then the top level are templates and pages. These ones were a little confusing when I first heard about them because they seemed like the exact same thing. But basically a template would be a wireframe where you take all of your organisms that you want to put on one page and represent it with a wireframe. And then the page would be our full photoshopped mock-up of the final thing. All right, so that's just kind of a broad overview of atomic design. Nothing too technical in there. It's just kind of a way of thinking about how you're going to structure your design process. How we actually implement that is through a tool called Pattern Lab. So this one's probably going to be a little bit easier to just show. So how we actually implement that is through a tool called Pattern Lab. I'm playing back to myself live. That's really surreal. Okay, that might have failed to record.
It's gonna be some epic feedback loop later, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. We might have lost the recording. We'll just continue.
That could be part 1.
That could be part 1. Okay, yeah, so this is what Pattern Lab looks like. This is a demo that's already been fleshed out. So when you start with Pattern Lab, you'll be creating like Twig templates and writing CSS and JavaScript files. And then Pattern Lab kind of has a generator that pulls all this, puts it together in a static HTML site, and this serves both as your style guide and as your prototype website. So right now we're looking at all of the atoms. So here we've got their color swatches. So this shows all the different colors that will be used in the final site. We show the fonts that are going to be used. So buttons. Looks like they've got a atom for their loading a GIF thingy. They've got their form elements like text buttons, drop downs, etc. This is what their image sizes look like. So there's your profile image. And it just keeps going. So that's what the atoms would look like. And then let's take a look at the molecules. So there's even shows the Twig template. I guess they're using Mustache here, but you can use Twig for Pattern Lab as well. Shows what the markup looks like, and then there's an example. So this one's probably like a comment, shows a profile image, title, and then some text. Just going to scroll through a few more so you can kind of get the general idea. All right, and then let's go up the next level to organisms. So here we have like the foot organism, starting to look a little more fleshed out. We've got the logo, we've got the menu, the copyright disclaimer. Same thing for their header. It's got a logo plus the menu plus the search bar. Example of a form. Example of a list. And then we'll go up the next level to templates. So this is the template for the homepage. So again, the template is basically just a wireframe. We're not filling in the pictures with actual images yet. It's just kind of all the placeholders, but it's still a basically functional site. It's just using Lorem and some text and images instead. All right, and then the final design. So this would basically be what your prototype website is. So look at the homepage. And so again, it's the same thing we were looking at before. They've just filled it in with real content instead of placeholders. All right, so that's basically what it looks like on the front end. And just so you can kind of get an example of what it looks like before it compiles it. So this is a starter kit for Pattern Lab that's already been kind of filled out. So when you download it, you'll have this dist folder. So we've got the patterns directory, which is where we keep all the templates. So colors. So this is what generated that color swatch thing that you were seeing earlier. Here's our fonts. We also have, here's an example of the list. Let's go up to the molecules levels. You can get an example of those. So again, it's just all of the twig templates, and those will eventually get rendered to the HTML. And then you also keep track of all of your CSS inside of there as well. All right. So a few other things Andrew is planning on doing a follow-up that talks about how to actually implement some of these atomic design principles into a Drupal theme. So we won't go into that too much, but you can pair this with Goldberg Guzzle to like sync with your Drupal 8 theme. So I did a little bit of proof of concept of this, and yeah, you can basically just drop the Pattern Lab starter kit into your Drupal theme, use a shared source folder, and when you update any of your CSS or HTML templates in that source folder, it'll sync to both Pattern Lab and Drupal. So you only have to maintain it one place, which is really cool. Yeah, so that's basically Atomic Design. Any other questions or comments on it?
I have a question.
Okay.
Does Pattern Lab, is Pattern Lab at the end of the day just like that starter kit? Or does it come with some sort of like small web server so you'll get that whole demo thing kind of created automatically for you?
There's a, I'm trying to remember, when I've played around with it, there's a few different packages you can get. Like they've got one that comes directly from Pattern Lab itself. I've been playing around with a couple different Drupal starter kits. The Drupal starter kits I've been playing around with come with like a gulp file. So you just run gulp, and anytime you update Pattern Lab, it rebuilds the static HTML site from the ground up, and then it launches like a static server that you can view it in. You can also like run it from the PHP server as well and just create a virtual host entry pointing to it. But yeah, it comes with a lot of tools for like generating it and stuff like that.
I have a bunch of stuff that I want to talk to you about, but it's all super specific to the Marshall project. So I don't know if I want to take that all of your.
You can toss a couple questions if you'd like, just for everyone else's benefit, to kind of see how you would use it.
So this is, I mean, you kind of talk about how you're going to implement this in terms of the technical approach, but it's also kind of a different design mentality before development even starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what's been happening behind the scenes, which I know you have been super up to date with, but
I keep checking into the Slack channel.
yeah, and I've had to go back and forth a couple times with the designer and be like, I like the way these look, But we have to keep in mind that we have XYZ restrictions on components and templates and that sort of thing, and we can't just put whatever we want to on this page. Which has been a change of I don't know, paradigm, I guess, for our designers.
Yeah, because a lot of them, well, I don't know, because I've been on AAA forever, but I think that the usual design paradigm is what I described the first time, right? Where you're building, usually a wireframe first and then a full page mock-up. And this, you're getting like completed designs for teeny tiny components, like this is what a form button's gonna look like. And then you compile those at the end. Yeah, so it is a very different thing. And so, yeah, if you want to build a project using Atomic Design, you're gonna have to have that in mind from the very beginning stages.
So I'm not sure if I understand what Pattern Lab itself actually is. Is it you go write the, the code in CSS for a button, say, and then what Pattern Lab does is it's a program that kind of like generates the style guide and like a sample page. Is that what?
Yep, exactly. So basically, Pattern Lab, it's a tool for writing a style guide and creating a static HTML prototype. And so, yeah, like as a front-end developer, you'd be going in, it just has, basically would be like working with a static HTML page. You'll have a folder full of HTML templates. You'll have a folder with your CSS files. You'll have a folder with your JavaScript files. And yeah, you basically just build your components and then later on work up to like your templates and full page layouts just using, well, I guess it's really Twig that you later compile to HTML. It just is a tool that makes it easier to maintain your style sheet and templates all in one place.
And if you wanted to change like a color, you wouldn't do it through the style guide UI. You'd just go in for the actual like CSS or whatever.
Yep, yeah, so you just like edit the CSS, and yeah, the swatches are a little bit different. Most of the time you just update the Twig file in the CSS. I think they were actually using, go back to it. Yeah, because they actually have text there that shows the hexadecimal number. So those I think actually were hard coded in. Yeah, but for almost everything else, like this button, you would just update the CSS and then it would cascade everywhere.
In the event that you do have one page of the site that is going to appear in a manner that is completely different from everything else, is it better to just kind of theme that page as a one-off thing, or do you still subject it to like, okay, we're going to take this page and break it down into each of its atomic components and start there and build up, just in case we ever reuse these?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess like the short answer would be like, why is one part of your site completely different? But assuming that's the case, yeah.
The short answer is red flag.
The short answer is red flag. But like, let's assume for whatever crazy reason the client wanted to do a single page that didn't conform to the style of the entire rest of the site. It probably would make more sense just to do it as a one-off thing as opposed to going through this entire process.
I agree it is crazy, but we get the request all the time.
But sometimes like maybe some stuff will be like the font.
Well, yeah, and hopefully
will be the
like
same.
it's not completely different. Like they're still using the same header and footer. They're still using the same font styles. Hopefully it's not 100% different than the rest of the site.
You would think. Don't worry, Kyle. One day we'll have our digital strategy team. They can enlighten the
Put
client.
the kibosh on that stuff.
Yeah.
We're here to enlighten you. Here, stare at this.
I think there should be a bad request rate. 200 an hour.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I don't want to steal Andrew's thunder, but like you can also take this thinking beyond a single project where you start to build up a library of components. And if you build it correctly, you can just, grab your templates from a WordPress project and throw it into a Drupal project if it's built correctly. And,
And we
you can mix
reuse
it.
all of our components on all of our projects, and we don't need designers anymore.
Well, I mean, you would still need the designer. but-
One day it'll just be an account team and a UI.
But yeah, like it can save you a lot of time from redoing the same things that you do on every single site. Because it's like, your buttons are going to be fairly similar except for color swatches. And yeah,
I feel like the progression here is you'd start being able to like pull your molecules in from another repo or something. Like not just saying, here's my whole style guide and now you're going to use this between two different CMSs, but instead like, hey, that hero image is really cool and I need something almost exactly like it on my site. So I can just pull your hero image into my
like
feed.
me and Andrew have been bouncing ideas back and forth about this. Like, oh, maybe we could build a Drupal distribution that comes with like a lot of, because the paragraph bundle would be analogous to the molecule, right? And so we could like have like a shared library that just comes all pre-built on Drupal distribution, or build like, a nice little Drupal module that connects to like a community library where you can just be like, download this bundle and this bundle and this bundle, and you just tweak the styles.
When Google came out with Polymer, that's pretty much how it worked. You'd use Bower, and so I could see like, this is a cool little email input thing. And so I just put like Bower install, and then it pulls that component in. It has like base styles and all that I can override, but I don't need to. I could just throw it in the page.
I think in keeping with the chemistry, in keeping with the chemistry concept, it'd be better if it displayed all of your elements in a periodic table.
We took a look at your profile at work. We were really impressed at first. And then as we looked more and more, we realized that all of your sites are the same. That's right. You know exactly what you're getting before you even start.
That's because we're data driven and we found this to be successful data. The metrics don't lie.
Build, measure, learn.
Except here's a graph that doesn't actually show you how WordPress has grown in the top 100K sites. But yeah.
You get that on record?
Yeah, on record. All right, anything else before I close the hangout? All right, thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
Thanks for sharing.
Your lunch. You're welcome.
Someone please help us eat these fries.
Okay.
I think Travis and I probably both did the same thing.